Do 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 do.
Do women's interests get their fair share of media attention? The most influential woman in Australian media says they don't. Let's ask her about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Ita Buttrose. Hello, Ita.
Hello, Bert.
Did you see Tiny?
Yes, I loved it. He was great.
Oh, it's always good fun. Now, what's this? You honestly believe this, that it doesn't get enough attention in the Australian media?
Yeah, well, I mean, in women's magazines, of course it does. But I think on television and television news, current affairs, and the general print media newspapers, no, I don't think women's interests are adequately covered. Now, if we take something like breast cancer, and I know our Dr. Jane talked about it recently, but 2,000 Australian women die from breast cancer every year, and another 3,200 have mastectomies. Now, if there was enough early screening done, about 1,000 of these women could be saved every year. Now, a lot of press releases are sent out about this, but usually it's delegated to women's pages or it doesn't get a run at all. And my point is that these women who die are someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's sister, someone's lover, someone's daughter, and I think men need to know that women are dying of breast cancer and that there should be more pressure put on the government to introduce early screening. And I'm talking about mammograms, which is an X-ray, which detects lumps very early. And if these were available to women and you could get it back on Medicare and more women knew about it, I think we'd see less death.
Ita, what possible motive would there be, though, for men to keep this sort of news out of the media?
They don't think about it. I mean, you don't think about it. You tend to think, oh, well, that's a woman's thing. I mean, breast cancer is women. But my point is that if men realised how unnecessarily women are dying of this disease, that I think that they would put pressure on the government as well. And I think women's health should be a people's issue. And it goes right through the spectrum. I mean, if we look at girls and exercise, for example, a recent survey showed that in Australian school children at 15, girls' fitness was not as good as it ought to be. And that 1 in every 2 15-year-olds in Australia have blood cholesterol levels that are unacceptable to the National Heart Foundation. Now, if men could understand, as well as women, that it is essential that girls start an exercise program in primary school and keep it all the way through their school days and into adulthood, then I think men would put pressure on their daughters not to drop out of exercise programs. And equally so when they marry these women and they become their wives and so on. Osteoporosis, the bone weakening disease that affects so many Australian women when they reach their 60s, could be prevented by exercise. And if men knew this, I think they would say to their wives, hey, you know, why don't you do some tennis? Why don't you go for a walk? That's why I think it's important that women's health issues be covered in the general media, not just in what is called the women's press.
But Ita, is male health covered in the general press?
Let me think. Well, heart disease is the biggest killer of men, and I think heart disease does get a lot of coverage in the press. You see, and I think that if breast cancer was something that men suffered from, or osteoporosis was something that men suffered from, I think more would be done about it. I mean, if 2,000 men, 40 to 60, died of breast cancer every year, I think there'd be a national outcry.
Ita, just on a more general theme, with women, what I can't understand is, I mean, I think it's wonderful that equality is slowly but surely being reached. I mean, the battle hasn't been won yet. But what I can't understand is, why has there been such a dramatic change over the last 15, 20 years? I can't believe it's simply because of Germaine Greer's book.
You mean in women?
Yeah, and also the fighting ability and strength of women, and also the acceptance by men, and also society generally that we are equal. How was that battle started to be won?
Because girls are being better educated. That's where it's happening. Girls are now staying at school longer. There are more girls now in tertiary education throughout Australia than there are men. There are more women now in the advanced colleges of education than there are men. 49% of the financial sector is now made up of women. And women are making inroads into all these areas that were previously considered male domain. And it's coming because women are changing. And because women are changing and men are accepting women more readily, certainly younger men, I think we need to make sure that they understand fully all the things that affect women, which gets me back to women's health. But it's simply changing because women themselves are changing.
Do you think that men really care about women's issues?
I think thinking men do, and I think that once men are exposed to them, yes, of course, because if it were your mother or your wife or something like that, wouldn't you want her to live as long as she possibly could? Wouldn't you want your mother to have the very best health possible? If we are going to be an ageing population as we are, wouldn't you want the women that you love so dearly to be able to enjoy that age? You know, I'm sure that you and Patty go exercising together, Bert. I'm sure that you take Patty out every morning for a walk, wouldn't you?
No, not every morning. Only on mornings when I'm not doing the show, Saturdays and Sundays.
But you would think it was important. I mean, why don't you and Patty exercise together at the end of the day?
Well, the sort of
trampolines
exercise that Patty does doesn't really interest me. I'm not, interested in gardening or, working in the kitchen. And I'm only joking, aren't you? Because Patty...
You're not. I think you're speaking the truth.
Patty is very liberated. Very, very liberated.
But are you?
No, that's the real problem. Ita, just in a line though, I mean, can you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Are we changing for the better, we men?
I think men and women are changing for the better. You know, I mean, it takes two to tango, doesn't it? And I think that women have to understand that it's been very difficult for a lot of men to accept the changes that have taken place. They weren't brought up to think that women would be working and wanting equality in the boardroom and all these sorts of things. So we should understand that each sex has had to undergo a great period of change. And we have to accept that women have to realise that it's been just as difficult for men to accept that we want these things, and and that men have had to struggle and change their ways as well. And I think change is always slow, but it is happening. And I think as younger men come into the workforce, these younger men who have had mothers who have worked, or they've seen women working and realise that it's not a problem, it doesn't change the way women really are, then women who work cease to be something to be frightened of.
Okay, Ita, I'm allowed one quick sexist question, aren't I?
Oh yes.
Still no man in your life?
No, I'm afraid not, Bert. Just my dog, Humphrey, and my son, Ben. That's it.
Okay, give them my love, won't you? You must have a wonderful, wonderful time. Thanks for your time, Ita, and welcome to the show, by the way, as a regular on the Newton Show. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Bert. See you soon.
Ita Buttrose.